Namaste and hello everyone. My name is Shavika and I help you navigate life through my experiences, lessons and stories. Quick update about the day. It's been a long day. I had to shoot a video for a collaboration and it just wasn't posting right on Instagram. I'm not sure what was the issue. I think it was an Instagram glitch. And I've been working on the video for the past 2 years. No, for the past 2 hours. And oh my gosh, the minute I posted the video, it wasn't posting. And then when it posted, they had an issue with the audio. I literally started losing my mind at that point, and I was like, will I be able to shoot this YouTube video? Because that was what the plan was for this day, for this Tuesday. And I was almost feeling so overwhelmed, and I thought to myself, let's have a coffee and go for it again. So here I am after a long day of Instagram glitches and posting a video which did not get posted and working on it so hard for so long that I still have to schedule it for tomorrow morning, and you will be seeing it tomorrow morning right before this video on my Instagram channel. And to top it all up, the road that I live on has become noisier than ever for some strange reasons, but then it is what it is, and I have to just keep my calm and not scream outside this window to ask them to shut up because it's all getting on my nerves. Okay, rant over, and if you hear any background noises, then just please bear with me. So now let's get to the topic of this video, for which you're obviously here for and you'd like to learn more about, and I'm so ready to spill the beans in terms of how I started my journey, what I needed, what did it look like in the last few years, and where am I at the moment. As I've mentioned in my previous videos that it's been 8 years that I have been in the UK, so I've divided this video into multiple timelines where I've mentioned what happened in 2016, what happened in 17, 18, 19, where was I at, what visas did I apply on, and how did I get them visas. So grab your pens and notebooks, grab a coffee or tea or hot chocolate, and let's chat. Once upon a time in 2016, a girl decided to move to the UK to pursue her higher studies. That girl is me. How that happened and what were the actions taken before that is another story, but then I moved to the UK in September of 2016 to study Masters in International Relations from Warwick University. It was one of the universities that I had gotten my unconditional offer letter from, and I decided to go for it. Fast forward 1 year later, in 2017 September, all of us had submitted, by all of us I mean my friends and me, we had all submitted our dissertations, our exams, our essays and everything. We had all done all of that. I remember my submission date was 6th or 7th of September of 2016, and we all submitted that, and I decided to stay back in the UK. Now, going back in 2016, we did not have the post-study work visas. So I only had valid leave remaining for the month of October, November, December, and end of January. So that's all I had, like 4 more months to stay back in the UK to do whatever it is that I like. I mean, like to work or to study more or just to travel. So as I decided to stay back, one of the primary reasons to stay back, despite the fact that all my friends were leaving for back home, back for Delhi, back for wherever it is that they came from in India, I wanted to do some kind of part-time job because we had heard so much about part-time roles back in India that during uni I wasn't able to do one. There was so much to do. And finally, this was the time when I did not have the pressure of any kind of studies, or I did not have any kind of pressure from like university and stuff. So I thought, why not indulge myself into a part-time role and see what it's like? What does it feel? What does it feel like getting paid? Because again, giving some context, I did not work in India. So soon after my undergrad, I decided to jump right into my master's, and I did not have any work experience as such. So far, I was a proper freshie into the corporate world or into the work world. So like I said, I started applying for part-time roles, nothing major, just like whatever I could find on websites like Indeed or Reed and Total Jobs and the works. So because I only had 4 months of visa, and this is all in hindsight, I did not know all of this stuff back then. Now I know this, but because I only had 4 months of valid visa, no company would actually employ me other than part-time roles. I mean, I would not get into a full-time role because then the company would have to sponsor me, and that's a whole big story and whole big deal that needs to be sorted out. But just for 4 months, the only thing I had was part-time role, and that was the only thing I wanted to do. So I eventually found a job and got a job. And once I got that job, I remember this person calling me to the actual office. So I was based in Coventry until this point, and this person called me to the office and said, we would like to hire you. And I felt so happy. I remember calling my father and telling him that I got a job, only to realize it was a job in a warehouse, and I had no idea what it's going to look like or what it meant. But I thought, let's go for it and let's see what it is. And then the next day, or I don't know, whenever the starting date was, I ended up going to the warehouse and starting to work. And I realized that it was a packaging job where I had to be standing on my own 2 feet for about 8 hours and then packaging a lot of magazines, like, the Peppa Pigs and Cosmos that actually go out in the stores and in the WH Smith and everything. We were supposed to be packing them and doing that quickly. So this is the background of what is actually happening in my life in the October of 2016. And around this time, soon after I had finished uni, submitted my dissertation, I moved to a new accommodation with a flatmate. Now this flatmate, who was a friend then, he had been sponsored on the Tier 1 Graduate Entrepreneur Scheme. He had already been sponsored with a couple of his other partners of that business idea. And they were sponsored, they knew where they were going in the next 3-4 months. And we used to sit down every once in a while to like chit chat what's going on in life, what do I want to do, whether or not I'm staying back to find a job, or what will I do going back to India. So these were the discussions we used to constantly have. You know how it's like, you were 23, 24, and you're discussing about life and careers and what's next. Around these discussions, there was another discussion where I remember one time this person asking me that, did you ever think the noise? Ignore. So around this time, this flatmate of mine asked me, did you ever think of starting a business? And in all honesty, yes, I did. Back in high school, I had this amazing idea, some problem that I had spotted in a mall. And I thought to myself, one day when I've gained the experience, when I've finished uni and I've got like a couple of years of experience, I'm going to work on this idea. And it always stayed with me. Like, it was an idea that stayed so close to me. It still is. Even today, if I've gotten the opportunity, I will still work on it. I know it can solve so many problems. It's just the financial bits that probably are not in my control at the moment, but they will be at some point, I'm pretty sure. But yes, then that the discussion started about whether or not I want to start a business. And I said, yes, I've always wanted to start a business, but it's not something that I want to do now. And I never moved to the UK to start a business. Back then, the only business I wanted to do and where I wanted to do was India. So I was very stuck up on the fact that if I start a business, it's going to be in India. It's not going to be in the UK. I've come here to study, maybe work, and if that works out, amazing. But if it doesn't work out, I will leave and go back and do what I have to do in back home. Discussions kept happening. We kept sitting down over tea, coffee, and over dinners where we were talking about this over and over and over again. And then one day he suggested me that, why don't you apply for this Tier 1 Graduate Entrepreneur Scheme? And I was like, but I have no idea. I've never studied business. I did my undergrad in political science. I did my master's in international relations. I want to join the UN for a bit, or I want to work somewhere else, like in an embassy or something, where I could explore what I've learned in my degree instead of starting a business, which I have no idea about. I literally had zero idea about anything to do with business at that point. And he kind of pushed me. He told me, why don't you try it? I can help you out. I know some friends who've got it, and we could together help you out in this application. It's not going to be that hard because all you need to do is put that idea on paper, research your things, and maybe it works out for you. After a lot of thinking, a lot of talking, a lot of consulting with a couple of people in terms of whether it's possible, also checking with the university if I'll be still eligible to apply, have I not missed the deadlines and stuff, I decided to go for it. Now that I was convinced and it was time to apply, the first thing I did was reach out to Warwick Enterprise. It's a committee within Warwick University that helps entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs in terms of the opportunities they have, and in this case, the Tier 1 Graduate Entrepreneur Scheme. We reached out to them, asked them whether or not they have more places, we've not missed deadlines, and everything looked positive so far. And I still remember that the deadline to submit my business plan or any new business plan was 20th of November of 2017. And I only literally had with me about 20-25 days roughly to get that idea on paper, have a solid business plan that can be endorsed by Warwick University, and also be pitch ready, which was the most difficult part. So, as somebody who's never studied business, who has no background, has an idea, but is not sure what she's going to do with that idea and whether or not she wants to really start a business in the UK, has to now pitch her business and convince this panel of 4 to 5 people within Warwick University to endorse me. And believe me, it was one of the most difficult parts of this entire process because it required me alone. It did not require anyone helping me out, speaking on my behalf, or answering on my behalf. It was just me. And it was a 10-minute presentation. I had to make a whole pitch deck, and I had to create all kinds of details about my business in terms of what the financial revenue looks like, what the marketing looks like, what is the idea, what the MVP will look like. And because this Tier 1 Graduate Entrepreneur Scheme was supposed to last for only 12 months, I had to show them what I was going to be doing in the next 12 months. So imagine 20 days back, like say end of October, I had no idea where I was going. By 20th November, I had submitted a business plan. I was about to give a presentation on the 5th of December. Important point to note is anytime you are applying for any business visa application, a business plan is a must. And it is the most crucial part of any visa application if it's related to business. You need to have a very solid business plan where if someone goes through it, they're able to gauge what the product is or what the service is or what is it that you're trying to offer or what is the problem you're trying to solve, most importantly. So all of that happened and I pitched on the 5th of December and the results came out and Warwick decided to endorse me on my Tier 1 Graduate Entrepreneur Scheme. It was one of the best moments of my Warwick journey, to be very honest, because it was not something I came for. It was not something I wanted per se. It was not something I was working towards in a way where I thought that it'll be life changing. But it was something I just randomly tried and thought, how about let's see what happens? And it worked out. And it was the first time, because it was the first time I was doing something related to business, it was such a big boost and it was so inspiring to me that I made it happen. And then I informed everyone in the family that I've been endorsed on the Warwick Entrepreneur Scheme and I will be coming back to India, but then also coming back to the UK very soon. They were all very happy. Of course, they were confused because that was not something I came to the UK for. So they were kind of in a mumbo jumbo thinking, what is this girl doing? She went to do something. We know she was going to get a job, at least for the first few years. And where did all of this come into the picture? And it was very random for me and them. But they accepted it. They were very supportive of it. And about 8 months later or 6 months later, I came back to the UK in 2018. This is the time I came back in July to attend my graduation ceremony and eventually incorporate my company in the UK. If I recall that moment, about 6-7 years ago, it was 5 in the morning and I started my application late night. I was a night owl back then. I remember starting my application around 3, half 3. I was like, let's go for it. And I did it by myself. So I went through each page and then finally submitted. And I think within like 45 minutes, I had gotten an email from the Home Office saying, your company, Avika Limited, is now incorporated. The smile on my face, oh my gosh, I mean, it's still here. I mean, whenever I think of it. Just these little achievements are so major. I mean, I don't know how much money I must have made in the next 2 years, but these little moments, you know how they talk about it's about the journey. So when tomorrow I make 100,000 or say a million or whatever, this little moment of my life will still be so close to me. It's going to be one of the most special moments that I have witnessed in all these chapters of my life. So yeah, I was so happy to incorporate a company in the UK. I don't think anyone had ever done it in my house. So that was huge. It was only the starting step, of course. There was so much more to do. There was so much learning to do, but it was a good start. And from July until March, no, from July until February, I started focusing on learning about business. Now I am literally going back to the blackboard and to the ABC because I did not know anything. So this is the point where my journey began of learning how to do business, what is a startup, what is an MVP, what is web development, what is a URL, how to build a website, how to do coding, and the works. Now I know I haven't discussed about my business idea over here, but then what I pitched to Warwick back then was an application for students to be able to track expenses and categorize their spending. So, for example, if I go out on a day and I've spent money on if I've spent money on shopping, I've spent money transferring some money to a friend, or if I've spent some money on grocery, and then there's money that I've saved, then this app would be able to track all these expenses and then put them into different categories. So that was the first part of it, and then the second phase of it was you could scan a QR code and be able to pay. Now these things were massive when I was like 23, 24. They felt great. Now we have apps like Monzo and whatnot, but back in the day, and I'm talking like it's the 1990s, but back then it felt like I was up to something really big. So during these months, I was just working on learning, developing an idea, actually making sure that I have the skills to build this and building a team as well. Around this time, I was also focusing on building a team and getting the right kind of developers on board. So I started meeting people from the tech background, which again I had no idea about. So I had to read about this stuff. At one point, I wanted to start learning coding. I mean, can you imagine? Like, this journey has made me go in different directions, in different places, and do so much that I wanted to have an understanding of everything that was going on in this startup. So I started to learn coding. I did not go too far, of course, but then that's where I started. I wanted to start working on building a website. I also started learning how to create an MVP, how to now further, redevelop my business plan so that if I want to pitch for funding, what do I need to do, how to maintain a team, how to talk to people who could work for me, because if these are developers, then, and I was the sole founder of this company, so if I have to work with developers, who are these people going to be, how do I vet them, how do I pay them, and how is it going to work? Like, all of these details were being worked upon from the month of July 2018 until Feb 2019. Now fast forward to the month of April in 2019, when I came back from India to the UK. I had spent 2 months in India due to some emotional and personal things that were going on, and I just needed some time with my family. So I had come back from India to the UK in April, and I moved cities. So from Coventry, this time I had come back to Preston, where I am right now. So this time I came back to Preston, where a school friend was living, and I thought, how about I do a new start over here instead of going back to Coventry? And that's what I did. So I moved here, started my journey again, but keeping in mind that within a few months, my visa was again supposed to expire. Because I had come back in July, that means my new visa will be valid until June end, I'm guessing. So I only had April, May, June, that's it. So 3 months. And this is the time I started working with one of the small businesses in the city. And I also started focusing on my next application, which was the startup visa. Now, at this point, the Tier 1 Graduate Entrepreneur visa had been scrapped, and the new visa, which was called the Startup visa, had come into the picture. Again, Warwick was my endorsing body, so I had to reach out to them and let them know that I am working on my business. This is the progress that I have done in the last 12 months. And if I would like to extend my visa for another 12 months, I had to submit a progress report to them, which I, of course, did. There was a lot of research and development work that was going on, and I let them know about it. And once I submitted my application to Warwick in the month of June, they were happy to endorse me. There were a few back and forth calls in terms of what I was doing and what were the kind of developments that was happening during my time in the UK. And I showed them all of that. There was an application that was also working at that point, and I showed them a demo of that because I was, of course, working with a few developers. So I submitted my application and got endorsed one more time on the startup visa. And then in March of 2020, I went to India for Holi, just for 2 weeks. I promise. I had a return ticket booked, and I was supposed to come back on the 15th of March, but my parents decided and told me that you should be staying back here. Everything is going under lockdown. Who knows what if you travel and things just go out of hand and then you're not able to come back. And on the night of 15th, I remember my mom came and asked me, "Are you going tomorrow?" And I said, "Yes." And I never woke up in the morning. I mean, I wasn't dead that I did not wake up, but I just felt I should have stayed. I mean, I should stay. So I decided to stay back, and for the next 1.5 years, I was at home in Delhi, not able to go back to the UK. Well, it wasn't that bad, to be honest, because I spent the entire 1.5 years with my family, which I had actually missed living abroad. And we spent so much time cooking, eating together, having meals together, a lot of bonding time with my siblings and my cousins coming over every weekend. And we were just together as a family after a really long time, ever since I had left home, which lasted more than everybody had earlier predicted. So this felt like a good time to be together. Of course, we were all scared of everything that was happening around, and we were being extra cautious of everything or anyone coming into the house or going out of the house. But we were being strong, and as a family, we were really cherishing these moments together. But if I talk about individually me, I was still so focused on my startup. I mean, I still remember at the end of 2020 telling myself that if not having anything with me in terms of being in the UK, the visa which ended in August 2020, and not being able to pursue a dream that I had started back in 2018, if despite all of that, for the last about what do I say, about 8 months, I've still been focusing on learning and starting a business, then this is what I want to do actually. Why I say that is because just as I left the UK for the 2 weeks Holi Holiday, I became part of the pre-accelerator for NatWest, and because of COVID, that went online. Had I come back to the UK, I was supposed to attend the pre-accelerator in Manchester, but then that went online, and all of April, I was attending events from them, I was attending workshops from them, webinars from them. As you know, everything went online and people were doing all kinds of educational stuff online. So I became part of that. And then a few months later, I came across the opportunity of the NSR Cell Women Startup Program by IIM-Bangalore, which was their incubation program for women. And I decided to take part in it. I got through it, and my company, Avika Limited, was pre-incubated by IIM-Bangalore NSR Cell, which was also sponsored by Goldman Sachs. To have that done, to be spending every single day of my life in that phase, learning about starting up, watching webinars, watching videos of how to pitch, and watching videos of things like anything to do with business. Like, my complete focus and concentration at that point was this. And to be honest, there was no hope in terms of if I will go back, or whether or not I'm going to start this in India, and when will COVID end, if things will they will get back to normal, but when will they get back to normal? When will I ever be able to start again? All these questions were on my mind, but not as much as the time, energy, and effort I focused into learning. I was learning like a baby. Like every single morning, I would wake up at 7, do my yoga, and then do my skipping and stuff, and then start watching videos, start attending webinars, workshops that were happening in the UK, especially from NatWest, and then of course this IIM thing. And then the third one that happened was an influencer, content creator on Instagram who used to do a lot of content on how you can start your online business, how you can monetize, how you can create revenue from a product and whatnot. So I was doing all of this during COVID with no idea of whether or not I'm going back to the UK or whether or not I'm actually starting my startup again after all of this ends. And one of the really exciting moments of this journey was that every time I used to watch a webinar or any kind of workshop, I would then concise everything and put it on a story on my Instagram. And I did it for many, many months. I mean, even today, if I go back to my archive, I'll have all of them there. But the one most interesting and something that stayed with me is the one I shared. I'm not sure who was on the other side, but I know one of the speakers, not one of the, it was two people. One of them was Mark Cuban. And I really wanted to attend it. I, of course, attended it. And after the end of this complete workshop, I concised all that he said and put it on a story again, like I used to do usually. And guess what? Mark Cuban shared my story on his page. Now, this may not sound exciting to anyone who'd be like, oh, big deal, people reshare stories and blah blah. But again, from my context, my background, who's not done business, who's not studied the subject, who's trying to learn, and who's so passionate and so eager and so curious to learn, for somebody like a Mark Cuban to share my story, that means it made sense to him, A, and B, it was recognized. It was just the fact that it was recognized and reshared on Instagram that I felt like, oh, I mean, that was again one of the best moments during this whole COVID phase, that somebody like Mark Cuban thought it was worthy enough to be reshared on his profile. And that moment again stayed very close to me. And it was these little small instances in those 1.5 years that kept pushing me, like being pre-incubated by IIM-Bangalore, and then having this little moment, and then that curiosity and that hunger to learn more and more and more eventually made me think that this is what I want to do. How is it that a time, 8 months or say about 15 months of somebody being at home, how have I been so focused to just learn this stuff? I could have been sleeping, I could have been enjoying, I could have just given up on everything and decided when COVID will end, we'll see what happens then. But I was still at it. And that was my motivation for the next coming few years. So fast forward again to August of 2021, we came back to the UK. Now, this was again some effort that I had put in 2020 and 2021 that I was able to get back, because my previous visa, which was endorsed by Warwick University, got over in August sometime in 2020. And of course, we weren't able to travel that time. And my family wasn't very keen on me going back to the UK. And so was I, because it was dangerous, it was risky, and I wouldn't take that risk. So my visa got over, but I was constantly in touch with the different endorsing bodies that would then endorse me for the Tier 1 entrepreneur visa. And the rules had just changed. So anyone who was already on the startup visa could switch to the Tier 1 entrepreneur visa by presenting progress report, a business plan, and probably having an interview with the team whether or not they want to endorse you. And I started working on it right away. So I think it was in the month of June or July that I started focusing on this stuff. I reached out to many endorsing bodies, wrote them emails, sent them my business plan, got rejected multiple times. There was a list of endorsing bodies that I had shortlisted, and I think as a memory, I still have them on my phone notes. And I'm looking for my phone everywhere. It's right here. So it's still on my phone notes, just as a memory as to how hard I worked for this. And I reached out to them. Most of them rejected me until one of them accepted me. And again, that was a wow moment. I was like, yay, I'm in India. I wanted this to happen. I wanted to apply for the Tier 1 entrepreneur scheme or the visa. And I've got the endorsement. I mean, in order to apply for this visa, you need to have an endorsement till date. So I got the endorsement. And I told them that I won't be able to fly anytime soon, but keep my endorsement number ready or keep it with you. And then whenever I'm ready, I'm going to apply for it, which didn't happen for the next 1 year, thanks to COVID. But again, when it happened, I came back and I did not need the endorsement to come back to the UK because of the new rules due to COVID. And I came back just based off an email from the Home Office, which was valid for 3 months. So I was given 3 months to apply for a visa again and then continue to stay in the UK. I came back to Preston and reached out to Warwick, and my research skills are like good. So I was researching on the Home Office website in terms of what's happening, what are the new schemes, what are the new visas, and I found out that anybody who was on the business visa or on the startup visa and was not able to give it time during COVID, as COVID kind of disrupted most and many businesses, we were given the chance to reapply and get another extension for 12 months and then rework and restart and restructure everything that was going on. So now this time I'm back at Warwick, and by back I mean not like on campus, but back to Warwick to endorse me for a further extension of 12 months on the startup visa. It was hard, let me be honest with you. I had to justify, I mean, it's strange, but I still had to justify what I was doing in the last 12 months and why is it necessary to now sponsor me or like now endorse me for the startup visa extension. So I had to let them know that I was still working on my startup. I was part of the, I was part of the IIM-Bangalore NSR cell, and I was still researching the idea. I had launched the app, but then of course COVID happened, so I wasn't able to like test it. I did test it around my family and friends and my close knit circle, and I had testimonials from them. I had a website ready and everything done. So I sent them the progress report. I had to go through about 2 more interviews in terms of, you know, talk me through what you were doing and all of that kind of stuff, and then eventually got it. So when I came back to Preston and applied for this extension visa from Warwick, I got it, and I launched a student discount card by tying up with local businesses in Preston. So I tied up with a few local businesses like restaurants, hairdressers, and phone repair shops, and offered students, especially international students, discounts. So it was a card which was named the AVI student card, and any kind of Bollywood nights, any kind of restaurant, students could get like 10% off, 15% off, 1+1, and things like that. So I launched that discount card, sold a few of them, and realized that this was the wrong target audience for different reasons. Topic for another video again, but it did well. I mean, I kind of tested the market. I understood the difference between the kind of students that come to different cities, what are their aspirations, and how different people have different aspirations despite the fact that they're in the same place. So I learned a lot about that stuff when I was in Preston and when I was doing this part of my business. So for the next 12 months, I was focusing on this, and it was again time to apply for another visa. I mean, this journey has been never ending of applying visas and getting approved and applying visas and getting approved. And oh my gosh, I have become an expert. And that's why now I'm consulting on it, on how to apply a business visa and what is the work that you need to do. But fast forward to mid of 2022, I was again supposed to apply for the Innovator visa, which it was called now, because there had been some rules changing for the UK business visa. They had renamed it and scrapped the Tier 1 entrepreneur visa, and it was now called the Innovator visa. So like I told you, I went back to the same endorsing body that had endorsed me for the Tier 1 entrepreneur visa and asked them whether or not they will endorse me for the Innovator visa. And again, I had to submit my documents. Again, I had to submit my progress report for the 12 months. Again, I had to submit my business plan. And once again, I had to submit everything that I was supposed to do in the next 3 years, because this Innovator visa was going to get me 3 more years in the UK to work on my business. The only disadvantage that I was not allowed to work. Well, sure, I applied for it and sure, I got it. And that's the reason I'm sat here today. Let that sink in. It had been a long time all of this was happening. It started off in 2016 and it was now 2022. And to have that approval, that endorsement, and that finally getting that visa was a big relief, because now I knew that it was not next year, it was not 2 years later, it was 3 years later that I was now again, I will be in the position to reapply. But to have been on this journey to reapply, and keep proving my mettle, keep proving to a body that I'm working, I'm actually working, I'm trying, let me be here, was hard. It was exhausting, it was overwhelming, because every time a year started, 6 months later, I was back to the same place of applying another visa. And every time a visa ended, I was back to the same place of waiting for another approval. So it did get a lot tiring and a lot overwhelming, but in the end, we made it somewhere, I would say. So at that point, I had gotten my innovator visa, which was supposed to last for good 3 years. I'm on the second year right now and still working on the same idea. In fact, in between, I ventured into multiple things. I ventured into AI. I ventured into a social networking app with other colleagues of mine. And it's been a great journey so far. Well, this was my startup story from back in Warwick in 2016 to this day. If I might have missed some details, and if you'd like to know more details about any aspects of this part, definitely comment below and I'll be happy to share it in another video. And thank you so much for watching this video. If you've come this far, it means the world to me, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it. And the only thing I would like to say is never give up. It doesn't matter where you're placed. It's not about the location. It's not about what you're doing in life. It's all about working hard towards something that you enjoy doing and consistently showing up for it every single day. And I might not have gotten the results today, I might not have gotten the results yesterday, but I'm sure to get the results tomorrow. And that's exactly why I'm working. Even if that means it's going to take another year, even if that means it's going to take another month, even if that means I have to keep showing up every single day, I will keep doing this because I love this, I enjoy it, and I will keep improvising, but I will never give up. Well, if you did like this video and have watched it till the end, then definitely subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. It really helps me as a content creator. And if you stayed till here, then I do videos like these every Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I shall see you in the next video on Friday, and I promise I'll post it.